الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. My brothers in Islam, this is a summary of the Bayquniyyah, inshallah, for the class that I give every Sunday morning after Fajr. Inshallah, for those who can join, please join. For those who are joined, alhamdulillah. Some of the brothers said that the explanation that I gave was a little bit deep and many examples and also many explanations was given, inshallah. And I wanted to make this video very short and very short and straight to the point, inshallah. I'm not going to give the explanation that I gave in the class, inshallah. I'm going to explain it, go straight to the point, inshallah, for the students of knowledge, so that they can understand, inshallah, in better way, in easy way, in simple way, inshallah. So the author started, أبدأ بالحمد مصليا على محمد خير نبي أرسلا. The author said, أبدأ, I start, بالحمد, with praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, مصليا, while I send salutations and prayers, على محمد, upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, خير نبي أرسلا, the best prophet, the best messenger ever was sent. So the sunnah of Prophet ﷺ, whenever you start a khutbah, whenever you do something, to start bilhamd, to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why the messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he used to teach his companions the khutbah al-hajah, the khutbah that we always saw with our khutbah in alhamdulillah nahmadu wa nasta'inu, that in his khutbah, and he used to teach them. So this shows that the importance of starting with it, and that's why the author started his poem with Abda'u bilhamdi. Abda'u, I start, bilhamdi, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, musalliyan, while I send praise and salutation, ala Muhammadin, upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, khayri nabiyyin ursila, the finest or the best prophet ever was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he moved to the next line. He said, وَذِي means هذه, this, min aqsam al-hadith, this is part of the divisions of the hadith. Min istab'idiyah, so he did not mention all the divisions, all the types of hadith. Rather, the ulama of hadith, they say up to 100 types of hadith. So he mentioned 30 something, inshallah. So that's why he said min istab'idiyah, is part of the divisions of hadith. And he said, وَكُلُّ وَاحِدٍ, and each type, ata, I'm going to bring it, inshallah, I'm going to name it, وَحَدَّهُ, and I will define it, I will give you the definition of every hadith. So he started with the first one, inshallah. As I told you, this is going to be short, straight to the point. He said, أَوَّلُهَا, the first one, الصَّحِيحُ, it's the sahih one, the sound one. In English you would say the sound one. So as he said in the last line, he said, I will bring the type of hadith and I will define it. So inshallah, now he brought the sahih one, the sound one, and he defined it. وَهُوَ, the sound one is مَتَّصَلَ, is the one, سِنَادُهُ, the one, this chain is connected. So the chains of narrations are connected. From مثلا Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah until the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the chains are connected. So Bukhari narrates from his shaykh, from his shaykh, from his shaykh, until to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That's called the hadith is connected, hadith muttasil. So that's why the chains of narration, the first condition of hadith to be sahih, authentic or sound one, the first condition, it has to be what? It has to be connected. Number two, and he says that, and now he's defining the hadith sahih. The second condition is, he said, وَلَمْ يُشَذْ, there is no shudud, there is no contradiction in that hadith. Sometimes the chains of narration could be connected, but this hadith is shad. Shad means that this hadith contradicts or goes against the other authentic, more authentic hadith, which means that a narrator brings a hadith which contradicts another more authentic narrators than him. So in that case, we will say, we're not going to take your hadith, it's shad, because it contradicts other thiqat, other people who are trustworthy. So that could be hadith shad, or it could be the meaning of the hadith is hadith that shad, that cannot be accepted, that contradicts the Quran, that contradicts the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. أو يعل, he said, lam yushad أو يعل, and there is no illah, It's not hadith ma'lul, hadith that have problem, that illnesses. This shart is the third condition of the authenticity of hadith, which is the hadith should not be hadith that has illah, that has defect in it. So everybody cannot figure out. The scholars of hadith are only capable of figuring out the hadith which has illah or not. And also how they figure out, they bring different narrations in front of them. مثلا, this hadith had different ways came, different people narrated. They put all together, they look at it and they will find that this hadith, this point cannot be here, or this hadith is not true because this said that, and this can't be there. So that's called illah. The third condition, يرويه عدل ضابط عن مثله, and this is the fourth condition of hadith. The narrator has to be upright, somebody who's trustworthy, and also has to be ضابط. Adala is the person who has a mulazam of taqwa of Allah. He always fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Most of the time he does not disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe he falls one or two, but overall he's a good person, somebody whom we can trust him. So that's called adil. The fifth one and the last one, ضابط. The person has to be a ضابط, somebody who is precise, which means that somebody has a good memory. Somebody can hold the hadith, he got it. Either kitaba, either he writes down what he narrates from others, or he memorized it. This way of ضبط كتابة وضبط سماع, that's what the scholars they say. So the person has to be a ضابط, somebody who can memorize, somebody has a good memory. If the person do not have a good memory, he cannot narrate a hadith, and his hadith would not be accepted. So let me repeat again. أولها الصحيح, the first type of hadith is صحيح one, وهو متصل, and this is the one, the chains of narration are connected. متصل إسناده, has to be connected. ولم يشذ, and there is no shudud, there is no contradiction, there is no hadith that contradicts this hadith. أو يعل, or there is no illah, there is no hidden defect in this hadith, hidden failing in this hadith. And as I said, that the scholars of Islam or the scholars of hadith are only capable to figure out. يرويه عدل, and the narrator has to be trustworthy, somebody whom we can trust. We said trustworthiness means that having taqwa of Allah, God fearing of Allah most of the time. We don't expect that the people to be perfect, because insan in general is not perfect, but overall the person has to be trustworthy, somebody who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fifth condition of hadith sahih has to be ضابط. ضابط, somebody had a good memory. He says عن مثله, and he narrates from same one, means that the chains of narration, the person who narrates this hadith has to be adil and ضابط, somebody who's trustworthy and somebody had a good memory. And the person who narrates from has to be again adil and ضابط, and the one who narrates from has to be adil and ضابط, has to be adil and ضابط until to the companion of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the companions of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of them are udul and thuqat, are trustworthy, upright, and people that we can trust, all the companions. Now go to the second type of hadith. He said والحسن المعروف طرقا وغدت رجاله لا كالصحيح اشتهرت. He says the tradition that's fair, that's hasan, it's fair hadith. It's not authentic as a sahih one, the sound one, but it's fair. المعروف طرقا, it's the hadith whose routes are known. We know their chains of narration. وغدت رجاله, and the men, the narrators of this hadith, اشتهر, they are famous. لا كالصحيح, but they are not as famous as the people of the hadith which is sound, hadith sahih. Which means that the hadith of Hasan, the fair hadith, is hadith that we know who narrates the hadith, we know the chains of narration, but the men, they are not high, they are not well known in narrating the hadith as the other narrators. Which means that the narrators of the hadith are three categories. One, people are udul and thuqat, they're well known and they're very, very good people. Whatever they narrate, it goes to hadith which is sahih. Some people are okay, people are acceptable, they're very fair, they're good people, but they're not as good as the first one. So their hadith, their narrations will be hadith which is hasan. That's what he defined it. And the definition, this definition is called al-hasanu li dhatihi, the hadith which is hasan by itself because of the narrators. There is something called al-hasanu li ghayri. The hasan, the fair hadith, are two categories. One is li dhati and li ghayri. Li dhati is the one that we just defined it, which is that the people of the narrators are good, but they're not good as the other ones. But al-hasan li ghayrihi is a hadith that the narrators, originally this hadith was weak. This is a hadith which the narrators of this hadith has some defect in it. They have some problems in it. But because of the other hadith, because of other chains of narration which are authentic, support this hadith, we'll say this hadith, although itself is hadith weak, we're gonna take it up from hadith being da'if to hadith al-hasan al-ghayri, because there's other hadith that supports the opinion of this hadith. So that's why we call it al-hadith al-hasan li-ghayrihi. I think the next وَكُلُّ, now he's going to define the hadith which is da'if. He says that وَكُلُّ مَا عَنْ رُتْبَةِ الْحَسَنِ قَصُرُ, and for any hadith and which that falls below the rank of the hasan, فَهُوَ الضَّعِيف, that's a da'if. وَهُوَ أَقْسَى مَنْ كَثُرُ, and there are many divisions, subdivisions of the hadith which is da'if. So da'if hadith is the hadith which falls below the hadith of hasan, which means that the people who narrate the hadith are not trustworthy or any other reasons. Because of those reasons, if it's not hasan the hadith, if the people are not very famous, or the narrators of the hadith are not thuqat, and the hadith has the conditions of sahih, then it falls to hadith hasan. If it's not hadith hasan, it falls below that, then it's called that hadith da'if, a weak hadith, and itself it has subdivisions, inshallah. So I want it to be very short, inshallah, for the brothers to learn, to memorize, to learn. Many of them are new. This is the first time that they're studying it. But inshallah, I hope that I made it very short, and I know I did not cover all the parts that I covered in the previous lesson, inshallah, in the class. I hope that everyone, inshallah, studies, memorize it. My brothers and sisters, memorization is the key to your knowledge. Mutun is very, very important. If you do not start from the bottom, if you do not study the knowledge of Allah, the knowledge of Islam, the traditional way, then know that there is no way, my brothers and sisters, in Islam you will gain the knowledge. In order for you to gain a knowledge, you have to be a tradition and start it as a tradition way, inshallah. So I'm going to stop here, inshallah. After I give every Sunday the halaqah, I'm going to record this short video for these students, inshallah, to make it summary, to summarize for them so that they could go back again. وجزاكم الله خيرا وبارك الله فيكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.